So I'm going to be talking about the SBF fiasco and how it affects our industry. Well, actually, I'm talking more about what I see was actually going on that we don't necessarily see on Twitter. So what I see as an astrologer on what was actually going on at each phase of development of this completely devastating thing that just happened to us. Okay, so now before I start, I want to mention in my last prediction, you notice I didn't talk about the eclipse. The eclipse happened on the 8th of November, and that's when this went down. This really came to the forefront. And although in my yearly predictions for Bitcoin, and I guess for Ethereum too, I did mention that I saw a downward movement start on that date. First of all, I want to say I didn't expect that the downward movement would be caused by something like this. Secondly, I want to say the reason I didn't mention November 8th in the video is because I was getting very strong omens not to talk to you about the 8th. And I pay very much attention to omens, and I take them very seriously. And if I'm not supposed to talk to you about something, I don't talk to you about it. So that's just how I work. I'm not going to mess with higher elements. Okay, so that's just me telling you that although I did see a downward movement, even I would have never ever imagined that it would have been this. Although I'm about to talk about why there was something that I wish I had trusted my intuition on. I'll talk about that right now. So, on Wednesday, the 19th of October, when SBF first tweeted a tweet about how it led to the FTX website, and there it was laid out his ideas for regulation within the crypto space, and it included DeFi regulation. It included a lot of different subsets of ideas. When he tweeted that, my radar did go off, and I really wish I had trusted my intuition, and I hope that following the news closely, I learned to do that so I can share it with you immediately. But my radar was set off, and on that date, Moon was opposing Saturn in the sky, and Venus was approaching Ketu. And what I see after the fact is that tweet, and I knew it during the fact too, is that tweet happened out of an immense amount of mental stress, and also I see that on when he was tweeting that, he was tweeting that in a state of stress informed by intuition or some understanding, maybe not intuition, probably not intuition, an understanding of what was about to go down for him. And at the same time, at that same moment, due to CZ's natal chart, at that moment, he also understood something about the big picture, about the real situation. And at that same moment of coming to that understanding, he also understood how to profit off of the situation. Okay? I have looked at both of their natal charts, and I'll just say right now, after looking at CZ's natal chart, I have an immense amount of trust in that person as a business person and as a leader in this space. I just do. And then because of his chart. And after looking at SBF's chart, I don't even like to even refer to it, but I'm going to for this video. Okay. So, I mentioned Venus approaching Ketu at that moment. Venus is really important here, in this whole thing. In SBF's chart, Venus is the reason that he became so wealthy. Is because of his Venus. And right now, at that moment already, Saturn was aspecting Venus in the sky. And at the same time, that Venus is also a planet that's very important for CZ, and the reason why it's very important for him and the type of actions he's able to take and the weight behind those actions. So basically, that Venus was very key, and the pressure Venus was under in the sky is really what created the substrate for all of this to happen. And for CZ, at that same moment, Mercury was approaching his natal Rahu. And CZ's Mercury is not only immensely strong, it's very, very strong, and it exerts an immense influence over his chart. So when this was happening, he also got the information to himself. He understood what was going on, and how he's going to make profit off of this. So on Wednesday, the 2nd of November, that's when CoinDesk published the article that it seemed that there was a very problematic relationship between FTX and Alameda, and that started to bring up obviously questions of, due to the assets that were held by Alameda, whether FTX was even solvent. And so that happened on Wednesday the 2nd of November, when Venus hit Ketu on that day in the sky. And Moon, at that same moment of Venus hitting Ketu in Scorpio, Moon was in the Scorpio pada of Dhanishta Nakshatra and was trining Mars in Gemini. I have another video about what Mars is creating for the cryptocurrency industry right now. What happened was the Moon gave us this insight into something that Mars wanted to bring down. And Mars is acting in a very specific way to create a very intense situation that either side can take advantage of. Regulators can take advantage of this, and at the same time, cryptocurrency leaders can also take advantage of that same energy of Mars. So that energy of Mars hit the Moon, influenced the Moon, and the Moon understood what Mars wanted to convey to us, which was that something had developed over the past few years, which was a big problem. On Sunday, the 6th of November, that's when CZ tweeted that he intended to liquidate Binance's holdings of FTX's native token FTT in parts, so as not to harm the market. And at that moment, Mercury was passing Ketu in the sky, and Ketu causes things to be kind of split into parts, and it's just funny because one thing that happened was that some whale watching account, tweeted a large amount of FTT that had been liquidated, and CZ responded, yes, that's part of it. And that was very much a manifestation of this transit of Mercury over Ketu in the sky. And again, that was going to be something that he was profiting from, because his Mercury understood how he can quickly make some profit off of this situation that was much bigger than that profit he was going to make, of course, but still. And then it's also this setting is a wake-up call situation has been happening for CZ as I see it, because Saturn was having its 10th aspect on Venus in the sky, and Saturn has also been opposing his natal Venus, but not exactly. Saturn hasn't hit that and won't actually hit that exact opposition. So, but this whole time actually has been like a wake-up call for him too, and it's been what for the past while now has created a much more serious interest in all these things that will make regulators happy and that will make his exchange sustainable. Oh, and then also at that moment on November 6th, Moon had just entered into Aries, so it was supporting this decisive decision, okay, on CZ's part. So, on Tuesday, the 8th of November, that is when CZ tweeted about a letter of intent to acquire FTX. At that time, Mercury was approaching Sun. Mercury was about to pass Sun. And so that would afford like a clarity, and so that was like that was a decision, but that was also the eclipse. And so what happens on the eclipse, especially in these kinds of material situations, it's not like the eclipse is happening, so we're not actually seeing the full picture at that time. So that's what happened on the eclipse day. And then when Mercury passed Sun, right when Mercury was passing Sun, that's when he tweeted about Merkle tree proof of reserves. So that was like what happened there was the bright idea came to him. I'm sure, it's not like a novel idea, I'm sure, for him, but that bright idea came to him that he put forth. That is something that he will benefit from. His enterprise is going to benefit from that moment of clarity. Okay? So, I guess one big picture with this I want to state is that you have two actors here, and CZ is like, he's definitely profiting from this situation. He's an extremely mercurial person, but even though this business person CZ is definitely going to profit from this situation as a business person, at the same time, it's in a context of there's actually like an emotional kind of deflation happening of he saw what was actually happening and actually affected him emotionally. But this is in a good way. This is a person who is taking care of the ecosystem. I have looked at his chart, and again, I looked at it critically. I didn't look at it with an existing belief. I, as an astrologer, trust this person quite a bit after looking at his chart. Now, the next day, on Wednesday, the 9th of November, that's when Venus in the Navamsha of the sky moves into Gemini in the Navamsha. Gemini is where CZ has very special placements. And also, Gemini is the sign where Mars is transiting in the sky right now. And on that day is when CZ tweeted that no, we can't buy FTX. Why? Because he came to an understanding, Venus being on the Navamsha of where Mars is in the sky, he came to an understanding of what the real situation was, which was very bad. So he couldn't do it. So now I'll just mention, and I'm not going to go into specificities, so I'm not going to tell you why I see this, because I don't want to just talk about it, but just before Christmas of this year, I see that we are going to get some more very intense developments in this case of SBF. And that is going to be a time of intensity, of huge intensity, okay, related to this. So that's one thing I see. Lastly, and very importantly, I want to talk to you about March of 2023. On Monday, the 13th of March of 2023, Mars will re-enter into Gemini. And you can watch my other video about what Mars is doing to the crypto industry right now. But shortly after that, on the 17th, on Friday the 17th of March, Mercury is transiting past the Sun in the sky. And because of the nakshatra placement of this transit, I want to say that between now and the 17th of March, I'm not sure, but I feel like it's a very important time to uncover the intermingling of politicians with people like SBF. I think probably this case actually specifically. So why do I say that? Because when Mars returns into Gemini, it's going to set off our future. Our future in the context of how regulation is going to determine the future of especially Bitcoin. And I think that what I see as an astrologer is that what Mars is making apparent is everything that was happening that we didn't see, or probably we all actually, or many of us did realize was amiss during the bull season that took Bitcoin to its all-time high. But we didn't really see it. It wasn't at the forefront. And what that was an intermingling of politicians and big money players like SBF, or maybe SBF is the example of this, but I don't think he's the only example. And that is not the reality that we want going forward, because that is not the reality that Bitcoin is setting forth for humanity. And I'm only talking about Bitcoin here, okay? I'm not referring to, I need to do some research on the securities issues for altcoins, like how they're classified and their regulation going forward. I'm not talking about that right now. I'm talking about Bitcoin, okay? So basically, March 17th is a crucial moment. Anybody who's working on this, who has their eyes on DC and who's working for our space, between now and the 17th of March, we absolutely must expose what was actually happening on the other side. We are understanding the SBF side of it, but we need to expose the politician side of it, because otherwise, if we don't, that moment can prove detrimental to our future. So basically, between now and then, we must expose that. There's no choice, because it's going to determine our future. And I mentioned this on Twitter, but if we're successful, then beginning in September of 2023, Bitcoin specifically, talking about Bitcoin, is going to begin to become the currency for international import and export. It's going to become, its life as a commodity is going to deepen and gain more force and more power in a way that is it's not even the same as gold, but it means that its value is going to become immense, especially because right now, due to this shakedown and due to, frankly, as I see it, the de-pegging of the stock market and Bitcoin at this moment, and the catalyst for that being this SBF fiasco, I don't see it as a coincidence. I see that the stock market needed that liquidity, and I don't really believe that things can be engineered in such a way, like with such precision. I do see, as an astrologer, the planets are the ones that are causing all events. And I don't really think of human beings as beings so calculating, because I don't think most people are even that smart, especially politicians in DC. I just don't see them as being so smart as to having engineered this depegging. However, I really don't see it as a coincidence. I think it's a big sign. It's an important sign that we need to look at, because basically it's an issue of the stock market has been able to rebound, but part of that is going to be because a lot of the liquidity has moved into it from crypto and from Bitcoin. And so right now, people who, a certain set of society has the liquidity and also the forbearance or the thought to invest now. And as I said, there's a high potential that starting in September, Bitcoin becomes a very new type of commodity, and it's gonna end up taking on a huge amount of value, and so that's just what I have to say. So how is that connected to the SBF thing? It's because when Moon was trining Mars and these other special transits were happening, that's when we first understood. That's when that CoinDesk article was leaked, and that was Mars conveying something to us. And we need to use that information, and we need to keep going and really expose what needs to be exposed, because there's a lot that was happening while we were all caught up in the bull run in DC. So that's what I have to say.